Yeah, so good morning. It's exactly 9 o'clock in the morning here in Uganda. Today, we are very happy to introduce you to a very important topic that is grant writing, which is often a very interesting but also very challenging task for not just nonprofits but also corporates. So we hope that by the end of this session, at least you're able to get yourself together and be able to write successful grants. This session will be delivered by myself. I just thought about it based on my experience mobilizing resources for nonprofits. So maybe I'll begin by telling you some of my experiences doing this. Um, my very first one was in 2019, where I wrote just a small grant proposal of about $1,000, and that was successful. It was a very competitive grant proposal writing process, but yeah, it went through. Then at my graduate school, I was also part of a team that wrote for a grant of more than 100,000 US dollars for student-led research projects. That was in China. So we created what we call the Dean's Grant for student researchers. So each time a student wants to do a research, they can request for up to $500. So that was also another experience. It was very interesting. Then another was, I think I wrote for a client about 5,000, about 5,000 USD, and that was really interesting. 5,000 USD, and the client got it. It was locally here in Uganda from UNFPA, a grant to address sexual and reproductive health rights issue in rural Uganda. So, and then of course also the Kectil Center here was another grant which I wrote, though it's in pieces, but in total we can get up to 20,000. So these are some of my experiences, but I also have experience writing grants for education projects. I mean, scholarship. Those are also grants, as we may get to know in a few minutes. Yes, so I've experienced writing successful scholarship applications for not just undergraduate but also graduate education, conferences, and exchanges. Oh, I forgot. There's another grant my friend and I wrote last year. That was 7,900 USD to conduct research here in Uganda. So that was from the United States Institute for Peace, and that went through a very competitive process as well. In the entire African continent, there were about 10 grants, and we were lucky to have been one of the beneficiaries. So yeah, so that's about me. So how about we dive straight into what brought us here today? I hope we are going to finish this within an hour, but of course we are going to have this sort of a lecture-like presentation, and then it should definitely follow with some really practical work that you're going to draft something. So that is the entire goal. And also, what you need to expect is that once you complete your theoretical bit and also the practical bit, and you submit a draft grant proposal to us, then you qualify for an award of a certificate from us. So for those that took trainings from us in the past, we give you some really tough assignments that you have to do. It is definitely to test your knowledge and mastery of the content. So we hope you will take part in this, but also it's fine if you will not have the time to do your assignment. So, but at least you would have benefited from this kind of a session. So yeah, so this is the content of my presentation. We are going to introduce you to grant writing, and then options, and then grant proposals for NGOs. Today we are mostly going to focus on grant proposals for nonprofits. Okay, so that's really important. But if you're a business, I think it's more or less the same process. So we are going to get to learn how to convince somebody to invest in you and your idea. Okay, then we'll also look at what makes a good grant proposal. Okay, um, and then we will also look at some of the best practices and trends, considering today's grant world. It's very competitive. So what are some of the things that you need? Where is the industry going? So we'll give you some really great stuff around that. And then like I mentioned before, we're going to have a practical part of this session where you are going to be given a call for proposal, also sometimes referred to as the request for proposals, R RFPs. Okay, request for proposals or call for proposals. Okay, so let's continue. If you think that the presentation looks smaller on your screen and you're on a computer, there is a zoom icon which you can just press, and then it will make your presentation bigger. Okay, you can zoom it. I think it should be down at the bottom. There are some four arrows. So that should zoom your presentation. It should make it bigger. So yeah, so what is a grant proposal? A grant proposal, as you may see here, is simply a document, and it's a very well written document requesting for funding from either an individual or an agency or a corporate, or yeah, it's a document that requests for funding for a particular idea or a particular project or a particular cause, and it's meant to persuade people to believe in your plan. I mean, you have the idea on paper, but it's hard for someone to really believe in it. So this is the document that convinces people and leaves people without doubt that yes, this is the idea and it's gonna work. And then the document also details a particular cause that you would like to address, a particular problem that you'd like to address, as well as your capability to address it. So basically, to me, this is something that will make someone believe in you, and your idea. Yeah. So let's look at some figures. These are really interesting. Like I said, we are going to mostly focus on the NGO world. Um, According to Global Newswire, about 267 about $267.54 billion were given to NGOs in 2021. So that's quite some money. Do you have an idea of what the GDP of Uganda is? Anyone tell me? If you're online, you can just unmute and tell me, or you can type in the chat. But if you're here in the house and you have an idea of what our GDP currently stands at, you could also just raise your hand up and then tell us. It would be great to also know your name first. What's Uganda's GDP? What's Uganda's GDP? Okay, I will give you the freedom to Google it. You can Google it. Okay, I think our GDP currently stands at about $27 billion, right? Sorry? But I was asking for if someone knows and you are quiet. So, what is your answer? 37.37. That's according to Google. Okay. So yeah, our GDP currently stands at about $40 billion. Yeah. So $40 billion. So that means uh, almost 5 times, okay, 6 times the size of Uganda's GDP was given as grants to NGOs alone. So this is to NGOs, not profit-making entities, right? So that's quite some money. And then in Uganda, we have more than 2,000 NGOs. NGOs are non-governmental organizations. I'm sorry for using acronyms and not defining them. So that's according to PML Daily statistics of 2019. But this has definitely changed because 2019 is nearly 4 years down the road. So it must have really changed. And then, who is the largest giver of grants to Uganda? So, according to research, we realize that the United States is the single largest giver of aid, followed by the UK. Yeah, so that's just so you know the NGO industry in the country. So if you're aspiring to start an NGO, then yeah, you definitely now know how many there are in the country. Now, I have a poll. Which is the largest non-governmental agency in the world? So if you're online, you can raise your hand up and wait, I'll type it here as a poll. Which is the largest NGO in the world? So I've sent something to your screen. So you just have to type, must have come to your screen. So you just have to type the answer. Which is the largest non-governmental organization in the entire world? Stella, Cecilia, someone is saying United States, someone is saying United Nations. Okay, let the answers keep coming. Which is the largest non-governmental organization in terms of reach? Let me get two more answers. Cecilia, can you tell us? And Joyce, can you also tell us which is the largest non-governmental organization in the entire world? Okay. Unfortunately, I think someone has said you got United States. We're asking for a non-governmental organization, not a country. Another is saying United Nations. United Nations is multilateral. Yeah, but I've got the answer. Joyce, you've got it right. It is BRAC, right? The answer is BRAC. BRAC was started in 1972, and I think it has the largest reach in terms of how many people work for it, in terms of also the impact. You know, impact is also another term that you should keep in mind as we're going to explore it at a later time. So yeah, BRAC is the largest non-governmental organization. Does anyone know where BRAC? Oh, the answer is here on the screen. So their headquarters is in Bangladesh, in Dhaka. So yeah, now let's go straight into grant proposal writing. Okay. So now these are the components. These are like the main components of a grant proposal. It has a problem statement. It has a project rationale or justification. This is also sometimes called justification. It has the project goal and objectives. It has strategies and activities. It has results. The results also include impact, outputs, and outcomes. Then another very important aspect is a budget. Okay, so we're going to explore each one of these in the next slides. So the problem. So this is actually the very first step for you to write a grant proposal, or even to start an organization, or even to start a business. So normally it starts with a problem. Okay, so there could be several problems, but then you need to zero down to one particular problem which is of interest to you, or which is very severe, or which, if not addressed, could lead to, really big problems, right? So in the problem, we basically answer three questions. Though, okay, there could be more questions, but there are three main questions that you need to address when you're coming with a problem. So first of all, who is affected, and how are they affected, or what's happening to them? What's up with them? And finally, why is this problem important? Why does it even matter? Because there are some problems that could actually, not affect us, much, right? We could do with them. After all, we have tons of problems. So, who is affected? How are they affected? And why should we solve the problem? So, these are the questions. So, when you're writing your problem statement, you need to answer these three questions of who is affected, how they're affected, and why should you address that problem. So, why is the problem important? So, and then there is one important aspect that I would like to bring to your attention, that is evidence. You know, all of these questions have to be backed by evidence from the ground, from the field. Okay, so the evidence can be in terms of quotes. For instance, um, I can say maybe the president was making an address, right? And he was confessing that COVID-19 is real and it's killing so many people. Maybe he did mention, we have a serious problem in this country. So that's a quotation from him. Well, we have a serious problem in this country, or we have a serious health problem in this country. So in your problem statement, those are some of the evidences that you could even mention. Like your project is trying to address COVID-19, and you'll even say, look, even if there are so many problems, I think COVID-19 is one of the most serious problems. Even the president himself has openly come out to explain the severity of this problem. In his State of the Nation address, then you quote the president saying something. So these are evidences. Then you could also give live examples. Let's say in Kampala, like my neighbor, you could even narrate a story of your neighbor who got COVID and how they suffered and how deadly it was, how it spread to the other family members. So live examples from the field, right? You're addressing a waste issue in a slum in Kampala. So like the live examples could be like when it rains, the plastic waste, block water channels and stuff, and people are catching cholera, live examples. So, but again, you need to be careful mentioning people's names without getting their permission. So that's again data protection and security. So you may just say one of the residents, um, but it's important you keep them anonymous. Unless they are really reputable people like presidents, you can mention their names. That's absolutely fine. And then companies and organizations, you could also mention their names. That's also absolutely fine. But to mention and say Mr. Uma died of COVID, or Mr. Uma is suffering from COVID right now, First of all, you might need to contact them and be like, is it fine for me to mention you? You know, I'm developing a project, but I want to explain the severity of this project, and I wanted to bring you a live example, for instance. Is that fine with you? Sometimes you can just say a resident, maybe an anonymous resident of this place, said ABCD. So that's also fine. So it has to be backed by research data, probably the LC. Let's say you are addressing gender-based violence, so you might want to go to the local police and get how many of the 100 cases reported on a daily, how many are gender-based violence related, this kind of data. So you do your research. So by the time you are going to ask for funding, you have done thorough research about the problem. You know it in your head. This is the problem. This is the person who is affected. This is how they are affected. This is how serious it is. And, these are the figures. So you know these things. You could also look at publications like by media houses, for instance, the newspapers, broadcasting companies, and stuff. So for those that are seeking to do like waste management kind of things, like in the slums of Kampala, there are lots of floods lately. So you've seen in the news, people have died, people have drowned. So you can also use such evidences from publications, from media, and then normally you just keep your problem statement to about 250 words. But again, it will depend on the RFP. The RFP, like I said before, is the request for proposals. So every donor is unique, and they will give you a set of guidelines, a set of criteria, how you should apply, where to apply, and all of these word counts might also be indicated. But because I've mentioned 250 words, you shouldn't go ahead and just keep your problem statement to 250 words when actually the donor is saying you should write 1,000. So it depends. But on average, they are not going to ask for 1,000. Okay. So normally it's about a page, or even half a page. But it has to be backed by data. So that's where you're going to pull all of the statistics, right? So you're addressing a waste management issue in a slum. First of all, for me, I'm interested in knowing how many people live in that slum in the first place. Of the people who are living, how many are directly affected? So I would also need to know how severe is it? And you bring all of these stories from media, from publication, from live examples, from your own research. You may even go ahead and conduct a research. Look, I did a research on 20 individuals living in this slum. And out of the 20, 15 are saying they are directly affected by flooding, like stuff like that. So the problem statement actually sets the pace for your proposal, right? So it gives it really great weight because someone is going to know, oh, this is how severe it is. And for me, if really that is an issue that I care about, I could just base on the problem to, to make my decision, right? That's also possible. So how you package your problem statement really, really matters. So like I said, we are going to have a practical portion of this session. So take note of some of this. I'm also going to share with you this presentation, so you don't have to worry. But you can take note of these various themes that we are discussing now. So the problem statement. So I guess at this point you can already draft something. I'm not saying you should do the 250 words, but I'm going to ask you at a later stage to just make a small presentation of what your problem is, who is affected, how they're affected, why this problem really matters, and why someone should invest in your idea to address the problem. So already you should be thinking, okay? Because we are not just doing this is not an academic program. This is something that we have to do practically, right? Great. So now, the second aspect of a grant proposal is also the justification of your project. So earlier, I also said that the justification is also sometimes referred to as the project rationale. So the reasons for you coming up with this idea, the reasons for you coming up with the plan that you want to implement. So, and then why someone should invest in it. So, why does it matter? You know, so this is the justification. So, in the project justification, normally you again need to mention the problem again, right? So you restate the problem, uh, and then you also need to make sure that you look at the donor requirements and just make sure that everyone, like the donor, what the donor requires is exactly what you have, right? If I donate to charities that do waste management, and now we have someone who is coming to do, let's say, someone is coming to do farming, right? They have written for a farming project, but I do waste management. While I know there may be some connection between farming and waste, because agricultural waste could also be an issue. But if you don't tell me clearly how your proposed project connects with my interest, then I think that's a deal breaker already. Like we cannot work because we are in totally different worlds, right? So, and then in the justification, you also need to emphasize community contribution. If you are a non-profit, normally today's donors would look at a project that has contribution from the community, right? Not just a project that is entirely supported by the donor. So, what is the community? What portion of your project is going to be supported by the community? Maybe community has donated land, which is a good thing. Maybe the community is going to do mobilization. That's also a good thing. These are things that you need to state, right? Because then someone will be like, okay, once my money is finished, your project is also finished, right? So, but people don't want to like support projects that will survive today and tomorrow they're gone. People support projects that will live today but also tomorrow. So that's the sustainability bit of projects. Okay. And then resources available. So in the justification, you also want to tell them, I really want to do this plan because I have the resources already. I have part of the resources already. And if the donor sees that, okay, out of the 100%, he has 20%, that's good enough to start, right? That's very good enough to start. Maybe you already have land, you already have office premises, you have some equipment like computers. Those are the things that you need to mention in the justification. Look, in terms of resources, we already are, we are in a fair shape now. And if you come in, will actually be complete. And then you need to use facts again. This is very important to support your argument. So why did you even start this project and not the others? Why exactly waste management and not the others? So again, you'll bring in the extent to which this really matters based on evidence, as I mentioned before. And then you need to emphasize on your strengths in terms of the people you have on the project team, in terms of if you have any resources already, in terms of networks and partnership, because those are things that make you stronger, right? As an idea. So you need to emphasize that because nobody is going to invest in a project that is 90% risky and only 10% safe, right? So you need to prove beyond doubt that this project is strong and this project is coming to live and not just to die today once your money is depleted. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next. So yeah, the next, I don't know. Wait, Derek, I'm trying. Okay, I think it's here now. They've changed full screen. Okay. Um, Wait 1 second. Dealing with IT. I'm trying to put my things to full screen. Okay, it's fine. It's fine. Um, okay, yeah, perfect. Got it. So, the third item, which is also very important in your project, is the goal and objectives. Normally, we just have one goal and we have several objectives, right? So, maybe who can tell me the differences between the goal? Let me go back to the previous slide. I would like to hear what comes into your mind when I say a goal and when I say because many people use these two terms interchangeably, but they are different. In project planning and management, they are totally different. Okay, but they are related. Yeah, that's for sure. So, which one is the goal and which ones are the objectives of your project? If you're here physically, you can just come and speak. You can come to the mic and you just mention your name and then you say out your response. But if you're online, you can just unmute and also ask, or you can type in the chat. So which one is a goal and which are the objectives? If you want to speak, just come and speak from the microphone here. Yeah, the goal. Okay, we have internet here in the office. You can actually Google. So, anyways, the goal is what you want to achieve in the long run, right? And the objectives are the little tasks that you want to do to arrive at your goal, right? So the objectives are actually a set of activities that you will execute to achieve a particular goal or aim. Some people also call it aim, but in project management, it's mostly a goal. So, for instance, my goal can be to have a clean slum like clean slums in Kampala, like you know, to have clean slums in Kampala, right? That sounds like vague, right? It sounds like also impossible, right? And sounds like you may not know when exactly you're going to achieve it. So it's something that may come true or may not even come true, depending on the activities and your strategies that you're going to lay, right? You may achieve it or you may not. You may achieve it partly or you may even achieve it fully, right? And then if my goal is to have clean slums in Kampala, what do you think could be the set of activities that I would have to do to make sure that I attain my goal of having a clean slums? Maybe number one is to sensitize the community on like water, sanitation, and hygiene. That is one activity. Um, but I'm also going to come to how you can formulate your objectives because there is what we call the SMART. When you're formulating objectives, you need to be very specific, you need to be realistic. The objectives also have to be measurable, and also you need to state the time. For instance, you can't just say sensitize the community on water, hygiene and sanitation. No. How many people are you going to sensitize? For how long are you going to sensitize them? So maybe you could say to sensitize 1,000 slum dwellers in let's say maybe in Akawa, on water, hygiene and sanitation by let's say 2025. So that is more specific. So it has some timeline in it. It has exactly who you want to sensitize. It has how many people you'd like to sensitize. How many people? Okay, it is what you want to do, how you want to do it, by when you want to do it, and for whom you want to do it. So it answers almost 4 or 5 different smaller questions. So that is a very specific objective, right? Maybe another one can be to um, maybe also just to organize like um, okay, maybe to even you can maybe to bring, let's say, 50 partners working on waste management in this ABCD Islam by this number of months. So I don't know if you get it, but objectives, like if you see from my diagram, it is like the subset of a goal. It is inside a goal, right? So the goal is like the bigger portion of your project. Of it is like what you see in 2, in 3, or in 10 years, and then the objectives are how you're going to get there, right? The goal is something you're seeing ahead of you, and the objectives are how you're going to get there. Whether you're going to ride a bicycle, or you're going to drive, or you're going to walk, those are now the objectives. Those are now the little activities. Those are now the little tasks, right? So I have made some table here that has differences between the goal and objectives, right? So I said we normally have just one goal, as you can see, just one goal. And then there are always multiple objectives. Objectives may range from maybe 2 to 5. But again, when setting objectives, you need to be realistic, right? You don't want to set 10 objectives, like you're doing way too many things that are even beyond your capacity, right? So we're going to look into that in the next slides. But we normally have multiple objectives. There is no like a fixed number of objectives. It depends on your capacity, depends on also your goal, right? But you don't have to have too few or too many. Then the goal may not be achieved by one or a few projects. So, like, if my goal is to have clean slums in Kampala, my project of sensitization, maybe I have a waste management project. It may not be the only project that can achieve this goal. I may need even additional projects, right, to achieve this goal. So that is it. And but objectives are normally achieved by a single activity. Then there is no specific timeline for a goal, right? But for objectives, we normally have timelines. We'll say, okay, by Monday, I have to have done this. By Tuesday, I have to have done this. By a month, I have to have accomplished this, right? And then the goal is achieved by a set of activities. Then the objectives are actually the activities themselves that we do to achieve a goal. I hope this is clear. Someone will help me monitor the chat in case there are any questions, and you'll just let me know because I'm broadcasting live and it's yeah, I'm going to share with you this presentation. It's going to be very, very useful to you. But I'll also send you an additional material, actually two additional materials. There is one manual that we used for a training for a GIZ project. I was part of the team that came up with that manual on resource mobilization. So grant writing is one aspect of resource mobilization. So you might be interested in this. So I'm going to give you an electronic copy, and it will be free for you. Now, I want to take you through a few examples of goals and objectives. Now, if, for instance, my project title is Fighting Poverty in Ugandan Farming Communities, that is my project title. Like, that's the project I want to implement here in Uganda. Then my goal is improving the livelihoods of Ugandan farmers. So you see now how it's flowing from the bigger idea. It's now coming to, a slightly specific, and now the objectives are the more specific one. Actually, the most specific ones. My objective number one to achieve the goal of improving livelihoods of Ugandan farmers would be to provide low interest loans to 1,000 farmers in rural Uganda by 2025. See, it has a timeline, it has who you want to support, it has what you want to do, it has where you want to do it, it has also a deadline attached to it. So that is a smart objective. Objective number two to train 500 farmers in northern Uganda in climate smart agriculture by 2025. Again, very specific. Objective number three to connect 1,000 farmers to Chinese buyers through e-commerce by 2025. If you want to be more specific, you can even mention what e-commerce platform you would like to use. Is it going to be Jumia? Is it going to be Alibaba? Or what is it going to be? So, number four, to provide subsidized agricultural mechanization services to rural farmers across north and eastern Uganda by 2025. I mean, I don't know if you guys are getting it, but these are the little activities I want to do to make sure that farmers' livelihoods have improved in Uganda. First of all, I'm going to give them low interest loans so that they can upscale their farming activities. And secondly, I also want to train them in climate smart agriculture. This is a new terminology in like in the agricultural space because of climate change. Farmers have to adapt to certain things. They need to change how they do their farming so that they do not suffer losses from climate change. Maybe they need to master the seasons. Maybe they need to have two seasons instead of one. Maybe they need to change their planting month. Maybe they have to harvest early. Maybe they have to use some sort of, I don't know, but this is a new terminology. Like, don't worry about it. It is not our field. But you see, when you're writing a project, you want to be very knowledgeable in that field. If I want to write a project on waste management, I'm going to put myself in the shoes of a waste management expert. Right? First of all, I need to know the terms that people use in that industry. You know, so what machines do they use? For us, we will say machines, but maybe they have a different word that they use to refer to machines. Right? I want to write a project about music. I want to know words like funds, music funds, showbiz, these are like the buzzwords in the industry, right? Maybe I want to write a project on education. Maybe the words I need to be familiar with, curriculum, inclusion, stuff like that, syllabus, those things. So, regardless of your expertise, for as long as you want money from someone, you want to be, you want to align well with them. If you don't align well with them, they're not going to believe you. And if you show that you don't know what you want to do, nobody's going to believe in your idea. So, when looking at objectives, we normally focus on these five um, aspects. We call it SMART. So S stands for specific, M is measurable, A is attainable, R is realistic, and T is time bound, right? So, like our objectives, as you might have seen, they have to be very specific. They are specific in terms of geography. Which area do you want to have your idea? Specific in terms of the beneficiaries. Who are you targeting? Specific in a number of things. So just keep in mind it has to be very specific. If it's so, for instance, if you want to, if it's waste management, that is again very very broad, right? But what particular aspect of waste management? Because we have different kinds. We have solid waste, we have organic waste, we have food waste. So you try to break things down. You see, if I ask you right now, you're going to tell me a lot of projects, but they will not be specific most of the time. Even me, if you ask me now, I want to train the youth. That is very vague, very general. Which youth do you want to train? Are they school-going youth? Are they out of school youth? What are their ages? Are they 15 to 29? Are they stuff like that? So that is what we call being specific in terms of the geography, in terms of the beneficiary, in terms of everything, right? Then measurable. How are you going to know you've attained a particular uh, objective? For instance, I can measure, I can count how many people I've reached to. That's why I said 1,000 farmers. So I can measure, I can easily report to my donor, I wanted to do 1,000, but now I've done 500. You can measure it, right? So attainable, it has to be within your means. If you can't do it, nobody can fund it, right? If you're not capable of doing it, you risk losing this project. You risk losing a very good idea. You know, people have some of the best ideas, but sometimes they are simply unattainable, right? Then realistic. So you can't really say you want to start a project that is going to eradicate poverty in the entire Uganda, like you who is here right now. That is not very realistic, guys, because even the government, which is like the single largest, you know, agency that is even directly working towards poverty eradication, has never achieved that. Even the first world countries, talk about the United States, talk about all of those countries, still have poor communities. But here, you have your idea, you have a project that you're looking for funding, to bring it to life, and it's about erasing poverty from the history of Uganda. I think that is simply unrealistic, right? So you want to do something that you can do. Maybe you want to say, I want to um, reduce poverty rates in school, no, in maybe out of school youth in this small area, maybe in actually quarters, maybe, and also be specific, like how many youth, because you can't completely erase poverty in 1,000 youth. That is impossible, man. So that is it, being realistic. Then time bound, of course, you need to set a timeline. So that helps you track your progress. If you said by 2025, this is 2022, how much have you done? 2023, how much have you done? And you might also want to break it down. Okay, I have 5 years and I have to reach out to 1,000 youth. So that means every year I have to reach 200 youth. So if you are to do your project, if your project cycle is 5 years, then you want to break things down. The first year has to be 200, the second year has to be 200 again, like that, multiples of 200. So that is how you can measure. Okay. Then there's another aspect here, strategy and activities. So um, this is another very important aspect of your grant proposal. What is your strategy? Your strategy is actually your approach. And then what are the activities you want to do under this approach? So those are the activities. So just as we saw with the goal and objectives, this is more or less the same. You know, the strategy is that broad approach that your plan takes. You know, for instance, we can take a capacity building approach. You know, empowerment, capacity building. That's our approach. But now, if we say capacity building is now mostly about training. Maybe the activities can be to train, the activities can be to offer mentorship, the activities can be maybe to offer exchanges, you know, still taking that same example of the farming community. So, if our approach is building the capacity of farmers, then activity number one could be maybe to train them in climate smart agricultural techniques. Maybe another activity could be to train them in value addition, because our idea is to build their capacity, to train them, like to make them self-reliant, maybe to offer them mentorship, maybe to provide agricultural extension services to them so that they can stand on their own. So these are like the what exactly you're going to do in your project, right? Okay, let's continue. Then this is very interesting. Results. So results, under results, we have three keywords. We have output, outcomes, and impact. But in the NGO world, we mostly focus on impact. You know, I used to have a friend who was contesting for a political seat somewhere. Then we came up with some slogans that leadership is not measured by age but impact. Because he was young and he was running against this very very old people. And most of the times people were telling him that he was young. Then we said it's never about the age, but about the impact. So what we were trying to mean that the impact is actually the long-term change that you want to bring. The output is, a short-term change that you're going to see. Then, no, those are outcomes. Then the output is the immediate result. So the output is the immediate, right? For instance, I have a printer here and there are papers in it. So if I order it to print something, what comes out here is the output. This is what I see. Maybe I've ordered 10. So that's the output. But now, the outcome, has it printed exactly what I wanted? You know, like how many of the 10 pages are good and how many are not, you know? So, taking that example of training farmers, so then if the activity is to train farmers in value addition, our immediate output, which is the output, the immediate result. Today we are in the training room, we've trained 20. So that is our output, right? Now, the outcome, let's say 1 month later, the people we've trained, they have taken this training further. Maybe they've set up a small processing unit in their community. That is the outcome of our training. Now, the impact, maybe the 20 we've trained, they have again trained 50 others, and now we see maybe 30 factories, small processing plants in that community. That is now the longer term. Maybe after a year or two, that's not what we see. Do you see how it flows? The output is immediate. We've trained them, yes, but we don't even know if they've mastered what we trained them in, right? But the truth is, we've trained them, and now the outcome is at least they've gone ahead and they've done something with their training. Now the impact is they've reached even other people who even were not part of the training. So they are now changing lives. So how many lives have changed? That's now the impact. So it's very important. So in the NGO world, unfortunately, they focus so much on the impact, not just the output, not your output, but the long-term change that you'd like to bring. Now, very important is a project budget. Yes, but actually, to me, this is like the most important thing. It is why you spend 1 month writing a grant proposal, right? Because you want the money. So, unfortunately, based on my experience, including myself, I normally do the budget as the last thing, and I never give it time. But do you know the budget can actually be a deal maker or a deal breaker? Yeah. So you should equally pay attention to the budget, right? Because it is what you are exactly looking for. Why are you even giving me the proposal? It's because you want me to fund it. And the budget is what details how I should fund it, how the money is going to be spent. So the budget is why you spent 30 days drafting your proposal. 30 days, or even there are some call for proposals that run for even 3 months. So someone has worked themselves off, for 2 months. So it is because they want a budget. Now, the budget details how every cent is going to be spent. Every single coin is going to be spent. And like I said again, the budget is either a deal maker or a deal breaker. It can make me decide whether or not you get a coin from me. Okay. Yes, I'm going to tell you how a budget can be accepted and how it can be rejected, you know. And again, you need to spend as much time on the budget as possible. For me, I would even focus on the budget. But again, the budget alone is nothing. Now, you've come across people who are saying, man, I need resources. Ah, man, I need to go to Mr. So and so's office. But they don't have the idea, but they have the figures, right? That's again a dilemma. I want 20 million. Now, if I give you 20 million now, you're not going to spend it because you don't have any clear strategy. You don't have any activities. You don't even have a problem. So you need to detail your problem, how you want to solve it, the activities you're going to do to solve the problem. And now the budget has to speak to it, right? Yeah. So I'm actually about to complete my presentation. Now, these are some of the don'ts. I've now told you the do's, but still I'm going to emphasize the do's alongside the don'ts. Now, your budget will be rejected immediately if it disrespects the guidelines. There are always budget guidelines. You see, when you see an RFP, now I guess you understand what an RFP is. In the NGO world, people like to use jargons and acronyms. So an RFP is a request for proposal. There is an advert. An RFP is actually an advert calling people, please send your proposals. We want to give you money, right? Normally, they give you how you should do your budget. They clearly indicate how much you can request for and also how you can break down. In most cases, they will give you a template in Excel with formulas already in it. So all you need to do is fill out the various activities and the amounts, right? But now, if they have given you a template, now you want to bring your own template. Maybe you want to do yours in Microsoft Office Word, but they've given you an Excel template. Maybe for some reason, maybe you don't know how to use Excel. Now you've decided to use Word. You've already failed, right? Because you need to respect their guideline. They're telling you to request for 5,000. You're requesting for 10,000 USD. So that is already disrespecting the guidelines. Then, if your budget has mathematical errors, you've not added up your figures well. Because in Excel, you can actually just auto some things. And in most cases, when they give you a template, the template already has formulas inbuilt. If you enter something, it will automatically give you. I'm going to show you how it works. I'm going to show you a typical budget, okay? Yes. So it will have formulas already. So do not add your things manually. That is my advice. Use Excel, it will be more accurate. All right. Let it be free from errors, regardless. Like, try your best to make sure that your figures add up well. Sometimes they just do some random checking to see if your things have added up well. Sometimes they don't, but just make sure your budget respects, it is accurate, in other words. Then, number 3, your budget shouldn't be organization centered. You shouldn't be telling me, you shouldn't be telling me to pay your staff, buy for your computers, buy tables, take staff to a recreation center in 𝗴𝗿𝗻, pay salaries on time, stuff like that. Maybe start a saving scheme for staff. But most funders actually want budgets that target beneficiaries. I work with an organization that called beneficiaries, primary actors, right? Primary actors. Those are like, they are at the center of the project. They are very important. So even in terms of your budgeting, your budget has to favor them, right? If we give you 5,000 USD, and out of the 5,000, 3,000 is going to paying staff and doing administrative costs, meeting administrative costs. Maybe we paid for water, electricity, salary is already taking way too much. At the organization, I think their administrative cost is always fixed at 7% of the total budget. 7%, not even 10%. So if you've requested for 10,000, only 700 is going to administration. So now you can see. So you need to be very calculative. All of your money, most of your money, the vast amount of your money has to go directly to helping the beneficiaries or the primary actors of your project. If it's a project that, for instance, works with, let's say, child mothers, then much of your money has to go to child mothers, either directly or indirectly. It can go into training, that's okay, like you've hired an expert to come and train them. They have to be involved. But if the budget doesn't mention them anywhere, then that has a problem. Then number 4, I also think your budget shouldn't contradict with the narrative. So I was going to tell you a little bit about budget narratives. So the narratives are actually descriptions of, okay, they're actually justifications for a particular activity. Let's say we want to buy 10 of those chairs, those plastic chairs. We need to write a narrative. We're buying 10 plastic chairs. Even we have to specify what brand. Is it 𝗚𝗏𝗀𝗀? Is it nice? What is it? Now, why are we buying 10? Who is going to use the 10? So in the budget narrative, you need to justify that we really need 10 chairs still, right? We need 10, not 5, not 11, but 10. Maybe we have 5 staff, so each one is using a chair, and then maybe we will reserve 5 other chairs, maybe for visitors or something like that. So that goes in your budget narrative, right? It has to specify what you're buying, the exact brand, the amount you're going to buy it at, and why this matters to the project, and why, if we don't have it, it might jeopardize your project delivery, right? And also, money has to go to only important things. So that's why we have budget narratives, right? And also in budgeting, we have budget lines. Normally, when they give you templates, they have those lines. There is administration, there is media, there is personnel. Those categories. Under personnel, then you come staff salary, training of staff, stuff like that, right? Then, so your budget has to be consistent. They have to have narratives, right? Then the format shouldn't be difficult to understand. So unless they told you to just come up with a budget and they've not given you any template, in most cases you need to do not complicate your templates, right? I will share with you a typical budget template just after this slide. But don't bring any complications. Don't have so many columns and so many rows. Just summarize everything and make sure everything looks just good and easy to understand by a layman. Sometimes the founder doesn't have any expertise in finance, but they still need to understand your finance language, right? Because in most cases for organizations, they have finance departments, and those departments, they are headed by experts in finance and accounting. So they're going to bring all of these accounting terms, which is good, because assuming someone reviewing is actually an accountant, so that but you try to break things down so that it's easier to understand. Then currency mismatch. If they say your budget should be in US dollars, but for you want to do yours in UGX, I think that's already a deal breaker, right? Someone in Europe is going to have to spend so much time again converting your Uganda shillings into their preferred currency. So if they've said USD, let it be in USD. If it's euros, it's euros. If it's pounds, it is pounds. Now it is up to you to like look for the current rates based on your local currency. So you can always go to the internet. You can Google like euro to Uganda shillings conversion, USD to Uganda shillings conversion. So that's why when you're doing this budget, you determine the exchange rate, right? So that you can estimate, okay, 1 USD can buy this, 10 USDs in Uganda can buy this, right? But it has to be in the currency that the potential donor wants it to be in. Then you shouldn't bring sophisticated mathematical formula, because those may not be understood. I know Excel has a lot of formulas, but like you shouldn't complicate your budget. Just keep it simple. Then failing to mention the exact amount you're requesting. Even if okay, some RFPs will say you can request up to 10,000, up to 10,000. So that means you can even request for 1,000, right? You can even request for 9,000, but you can also request for 10,000. But now the donor doesn't know how much exactly you want. Even when you have all of these totals, you still need to make a statement. I normally prefer to put it on top of my budget. Amount requested, then I just mention it in that currency. Then now I draw the budget and I bring all of this breakdown. Or you can even bring it somewhere just down. But you need to still mention how much exactly you're requesting, right? Then you need to disclose other financial sources. You may already have some funds. Maybe if you're an organization, you have some savings, or if you're like a social enterprise, you're also selling some things that bring you money. Maybe members have contributed. Maybe there's another donation that you just want to get a second donation to supplement it. But again, be careful because every donor is unique. Others will even ask you to open a new bank account just for their grant. You don't have to mix it with other accounts, right? So even if you have like 10 other projects that are using the same pool, so you may have to create another account. So mention all of your financial capabilities. Like if you have, and if you don't have also, you need to be honest that I still don't have anything. But just for you to have higher chances, you need to have something, right? And by resources, I don't just mean you should have the money. If you're buying 10 chairs, maybe you can tell them, okay, we already have five, so we're adding five. So it's five, yes. So that's good enough. We are buying electronics. We have three of our staff already have their personal computers and they're willing to use them. So we only need two or three more computers. That's good enough, right? So someone who is potentially going to give you the money will look at, okay, even if I didn't have the money for computers, this project could actually take off, right? So that's what they like to hear. But they don't want to hear that their money is going to start buying from the very smallest things up to the biggest things. And they also don't want to hear that after this first year of funding, the next year the project is actually dead because there was an issue with their funding. So they need projects that can stay now, tomorrow, and even in the future, right? So, and over or underestimating the budget, right? So that's also another issue. Normally, they give you the exact amount, and so if they say up to, you can request up to 10,000 USD, but now you've written a proposal and you're requesting for 100 USD. Think about that. They're saying you can get up to 10,000, but you're requesting for 100. Oh man, that's too small. Okay. Well, even if well, you may just want to start a check. 10,000 is up for grabs. So, so someone will look at the impact. So you're requesting 100, and your impact is like we are going to have to wait for 10 years for you to make an impact. So it's not a project worth investing in, right? I'd rather give money to someone who has a concrete idea, and that also comes with a bigger budget, right? So again, if they say 10,000 USD is up for grabs, but you've requested for um, 20,000 or 50,000, so that's again way too much, right? So, but if they say up to something, it shouldn't exceed. Mm. But if they say about 10,000, you can request about 10,000. You could go maybe to 11,000, or even you could go up to 12,000, about 10,000, close to 10,000. Okay, so it can be close below, it can be close above, right? So those are some of the keywords that you also need to be familiar with, so that you don't mess up So there is also what we call annexes. Annexes. I don't know if anyone understands when I say annex. Let me just go back because I want to gauge your activity, your participation. So what is an annex, if I may ask? It is also an important part of a proposal. If you want to mention something, just mention your name first, and then if you're online, you can raise your hand up, or you can even just unmute and ask. Annex. Do you have an idea, sir? Okay. Can you come closer to the microphone, if you don't mind? You might just want to mention your name first.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Derek. Now, annex is that section of the proposal where you include the things that are important, but maybe they did not ask for them. It can be things like your work plan. Maybe the donor did not ask for that, but you feel it's important because it would be a very competitive grant. So to stand out, to make sure you're on top of the game by adding things that are not included, but you feel they're important. Thank you.
Someone is Joseph. Your hand is up. Please speak. Then Hillary is saying extra information. Very good. Extra light into something. Okay, good. Otim, you got off a bit because of network. No worries. Joseph, you can unmute and speak. Joseph? Oh, I think you're in listen only mode. So I think you joined with just the listening only. So you might need to rejoin and choose microphone. Then your microphone will be activated. But just let me know if you've joined with your microphone and then I can let you speak. Okay. Yeah. So annexes, let me go there. Someone will let me know if Joseph is back so that he can speak. So yeah, just like Derek and Hillary have said, these are extra info. But for me, I would say extra info that are important to your proposal. Yes? Yes. Cecilia, do you want to add something about annexes? Okay. So now,
No, let's continue.
in the
Good morning, everyone.
morning.
Hi, Joel. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. Loud and clear.
Okay, I hope my network is not very bad. Okay, thank you.
No, it's fine.
So, great. Not to differ from everyone, I would call this any other additional information or supporting documents. Imagine you have written, you are talking about a budget, and so in the proposal itself, you just attach like a summary of the budget, but you feel like, oh, there's a need for you to add a detailed budget to that. So you can attach it under the annexes. Or for the program activities or the project activities, you find that in the proposal, you just give a summary of them, and now you want to have like a more detailed document describing all the activities in their different stages, how they're going to be. You can add them in the annexes. So this is any other thing that you adding onto your proposal to support it. It could be asked or not asked, but if it is asked, then maybe you've given it in a more simplified form, and then either you're giving it now in a detailed form. If it is not asked, just to give you an upper hand. If say this proposal is not to be received by only, you are not the only person who is sending it. What makes you different? So it could be any other info.
Okay, I think you've nailed it, Cecilia and Hillary and Derek. I think I agree with all of you. So this is extra info. In other words, extra info that should be relevant to your proposal. So the extra info can be, there is what we call an organogram. These are NGO words. So an organogram is like an organizational chart. So basically it has all of the titles in your organization. I think you've ever seen this, something like a tree. This is the head, then there's another arrow coming to maybe an officer, there's an assistant below the officer, that's an organogram. Like you've drawn all of this, and you have a diagram that shows like the various positions and how power is in your organization. So you may have that kind of information in your annex. Then, like Cecilia said, you may have detailed list of activities. There is another thing. I think there's another term for that. Maybe the project timeline. It's also called the Gantt chart. The Gantt chart tells you, it lists all of the activities, who should do them, what resources you need to do them, and the progress as of now. Is it at 0%? Is it at 10% complete? Is it 50% complete? So that's also very important. So you could do a Gantt chart as well. And if you need help with all of this, I can send you templates, by the way, of an organogram, of a Gantt chart. Then team profiles. Maybe this project already, like by the time you write a proposal, you also need to have a project team. Who is going to be the project coordinator? Who is the project officer? Who is the finance manager? Who is so all of the team members. So basically, you may also draw something similar to the organogram that it has a picture of somebody, their educational background, their title, right? But you write it in a very convincing way because someone wants to see how many years of experience do they have. Why do you think they are like the best to do that? We are looking for, this is an education project, but there is no teacher anywhere. So do you think that's a real project that will, I'm not going to be convinced. We are doing an IT project, but I don't see anyone with a certificate in computer science, software, data. So it's just, And then these days, donors also focus on inclusion. Your project team has to have males, females, there has to have some people with disability, there has to have youth, the elderly, it has to be inclusive, right? Again, it depends on who is giving you the money, but some people will emphasize this, that 2/3 of the project team has to be females. I've come across such kind of call for proposals. Now, if they say 70% of your project team has to be females, but now you've written a proposal and your project team has 70% males, so you're contradicting, right, with the requirements. So you're at risk of losing, right? Maybe even for such projects, if they say women, maybe the head of the program has to be a woman, right? So you give women, so the women have to be in the front seat. You understand? So I think with project proposal writing, you just have to understand the kind of a donor you're working with, and you need to play around with all of these requirements. Then maybe other things that could go there could be reference letters. Maybe there is an organization you want to work with, and you've maybe worked with them in the past in that exact field, and they can speak to your ability to deliver this project. They can write for you a nice recommendation letter. Look, we've worked with these guys for over the years and they're really good. They are good in terms of their expertise. They're good in terms of how they manage their finances, in terms of reporting. Donors want people who report, by the way. Donors want people who will not waste their money. So now if someone writes for a letter, a nice letter, you can package all of those and put them in the annexes. So the annex is actually like a bundle of things bundle of additional items that were not maybe requested, but you think they could add weight to your application. So this is more or less like seeking for a job, right? I'm looking for a teaching job, and they are saying send us an application package. So I have an application letter, I have a CV, I have my documents, right? But I don't just want to limit myself to my transcript or my certificate. I may even bring my certificate from the Uganda National Teachers Union. Yes, because that connects to what we do, right? I may bring a certificate of best teacher of the year at a particular school, right? So it gives me, if I'm an English language teacher, I may bring a certificate of teaching English as a second language, So that speaks to my ability to deliver that job, right? So I don't. So there was So there was a time they were saying we need people who have driving skills. I know how to drive, but then what shows? So I have to put my driving license, right? So that speaks to it. Then other things that you could also put in the annex could be reports of previous activities that you've done. It should be in a similar project, similar to what you're requesting funding for. And the report could tell the donor, okay, this is what they did, and they can look through your files for like the reports. Then legal documents, maybe your registration certificate, you are authorized to work in that kind of an area. If you're a CBO, you have the CBO certificate. An NGO, you have the NGO permit. So those can go so that the donor can say, okay, there is no risk working with these guys. They're actually in good standing with the laws of Uganda, the laws of the land. Then policies. Now again, the policies, like you don't need to put every policy there, but financial policy is very important. How you're going to manage the money I'm going to give you. So if you have your policies of how you're going to manage, like policies normally state how you guys manage. For instance, we have zero tolerance to corruption in our, there are those policies. Zero tolerance to corruption, no kickbacks, no bribes, stuff like that. Financial reporting is very transparent, stuff like that. So if there are such policies, financial policy has to be there. And then if an organization is focusing on females, maybe you want to have a gender and inclusion policy also attached. Maybe for us, we respect diversity and we empower women and we put women at the core of our work, women and girls, stuff like that. Unfortunately, those are the projects that are selling right now, women and girls, right? Yeah. So, but yeah, let's see if the trend is going to change. Yeah, organizational profile. I think this is obvious. Like about your organization, when you guys started it, who started it, what was the goal, the motive of starting the organization, what are some of the biggest achievements that you guys have realized over the years, So this could go in the annex, but again, you don't want to crowd your annex, right? Just a few relevant information that you think could strengthen your application, right? So the other thing I wanted to show you was, so that's actually the end of my presentation. The other thing I wanted to show you was, okay, so I have a call for proposal. This is now an assignment. I have a call for proposal, and it's here. Call for proposals. Let me see if there is one which you guys can all try. Oh, one thing I forgot to tell you, there are websites that you guys should visit. One is this. I'll put the link in the chat, but I think they're also in my presentation. Let me just share my screen. There's what we call funds for NGOs. This is the link. I'll put it in the chat as well, but it was also included in my presentation somewhere. Then there is what we call Advance Africa. Advance Africa. I think is this one. So they also give us calls for proposals, scholarships and stuff. But I think, yeah, you come here under NGO grants, and then you'll see a list of grants which are open. So, for instance, there is this one. Okay, let's just open this and see. Small grants. I just want to see if you guys can apply for something like this, right? CV application must be sent through professional email address, not Yahoo. Okay, now you see when you come to a call for proposal like this, this is about them. You need to read everything very, very carefully. Like everything that you see there, read it very carefully and do just that. So this is a grant we are going to try because we have a project on conservation for sure. But let's take it as our challenge for today because it's a small grant of 1,500 euros. And you see, now again, I said if they say 1,500 maximum, you cannot ask for more than 1,500. So, and the currency is euro. So this funding is open to individuals or organizations. By the way, even if you don't have an organization, you can apply for it. Okay. So I'm looking forward to seeing your proposals. And this is an assignment. And if you do it well, we will also give you a certificate. Okay. Like I said, we are doing this practically. Okay. So it's open to individuals or organizations in sub-Saharan Africa. Applicants can be based anywhere in the world. So that means even if someone is in the US, but they want to do their project in sub-Saharan Africa, that's also fine. So you read and understand everything. Like for me, what I normally do, I go like word for word. Because if there is something, there's a deal breaker here, then there's a risk. You want to see how to address it, right? Either you just don't apply because you need time to do this. So why do you put in time into something that is not going to yield? So I would rather invest the time in looking for another call for proposal which meets my project requirements. Both successful and unsuccessful are welcome to apply again 12 months after the submission. So that means if you applied last year and you didn't get it, you can still apply this year. Eligible project will have a clear conservation value and be based in a country in sub-Saharan Africa. Okay, that's good. Preference will go to projects in relation with elephants. Oh, so I think we are now off. Is there anyone who is doing any project around elephants, or do you want to do anything that has to do with elephants? Yeah, I thought it was just generally nature conservation, but I think they are being specific. Okay, they are saying preference, so that means even if you're doing any other things, maybe you're conserving historical sites like heritage, that's also okay. Maybe you're conserving like historical trees, like like in rural areas, that's also okay. Maybe you're conserving some species of animals that are going extinct, that's also okay. So anyways, that's then you need to pay special attention to how to apply. Most of your questions will always be answered here. But you see, unfortunately, we have a very poor reading culture. So I normally send out call for proposals, job adverts, but someone doesn't even open it and they will ask, how do I apply? How do I apply? I've given you a link. You're supposed to spend time. But now people want you to read for them, unfortunately. Then you have to spend time writing a response to someone. But this is also, this is just ethical, this is outside of this. We just need to read. So that's one call for proposal, but let me open another one maybe. Funding for gender equality and women's rights organizations and movements. But now this one, the deadline is only in a week's time. Okay, let me see. Okay, so anyways, this website, let me send you the link also in the chat, and I'm going to send it again in my emails. And there is, yeah, I think these are like the two sites that I normally visit. Fast forward. Okay, I know someone who works with Fast Forward. So, but this is a big project and mostly for businesses. But anyways, you need to spend time. I'm going to leave it up to you. Find a call for proposals from either this website, advanceafrica.com, or fundsforngos.org, and then send me, first of all, the call for proposal. Send it to me, and then I'm going to read it, all of the requirements. Then you need to apply. But I don't want to, maybe if you want to submit it, if you're not an organization, then look for the ones that also cater for individuals. Oh, there's also one here. There's the pollination project for individuals. Maybe if you guys want that, it's a small grant. So you can go for the daily grant. So every day they are giving out $1,000 to projects, right? So then I think read. So they have every information here about the program. You check if you are qualified, complete an application, and you wait for it to be reviewed. So just get any call for proposal that suits you or your organization. Then send it to me first of all, because we want to get this done, right? And then you can start working on it. Maybe you send it to me first, I'll read and see, and I'll even tell you if you really meet the requirements. Then based on the experience from today, I guess you should be able to do a good grant. One thing I want to tell you is that there is no expert in grant writing. People try and fail. For me, I've written grants, like as I mentioned in the past. I think I've been part of grant writing for now more than $100,000 in funding. But I didn't have to maybe do a course on grant writing or project. Even the ones who do project planning and management are not the best grant writers. So it's just about how you package your idea, and it's also about the time you put into it. Okay. So I wanted to share with you just a sample budget, a simple budget. Okay, budget. Is a question? Okay. Let me just download one of our budgets, which we won about $8,000 lately of recent. Budget. Okay, let me see if I can open one, which we did. Okay, it's here. Are you able to see my screen? Okay. So this is the budget, and this template was given by them. Okay. So, and they even have instructions for completing the budget. So you need to pay special attention to all of these kind of instructions. So they say fields in yellow are to be completed by contractor. So we're actually the contractor. Fields in white and blue contain standard text or formulas, so they should not be changed. That means if you alter them, then your math is not going to come right. Rows may be added or deleted as necessary, but please ensure formulas are correct before submitting. So in column B, provide a brief description. So blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this was the budget. So 2 people on the team. And now this is the narrative I was telling you about. So this is our research. We are the 2 people, and we are requesting for 3,000 as our payment. Then this is our narrative. Early career researchers will receive 3,000 per project. So the 2 of us are going to share 3,000. If 2 researchers are collaborating on a project, they will need to determine how they intend to divide this payment. So now this is us. Then measure of unit. This is not applicable, but let's say we are buying, let's say chairs. Maybe we want to say 10 units, 1 unit. Maybe we are buying something which is measured in kilograms. Maybe we would have to include here in kgs. Then number of units, number of kilos, maybe 1 or 2. Then here the total will have to come automatically because there's a formula. This is going to multiply with that and it will lead to that, right? So that had a formula there. Then you can add other things here. You can add rows, and then there is a subtotal that comes automatically after you. So you don't have to use your calculator to do this. Then travel and per diem. Then we are saying Uber and train to the airport. So this is the narrative. But even we were not being very specific. Now, who is Uber and who is train? From which airport to which? From which train station to which airport? Anyways, this was for my colleague because he had to use the train, go to the airport, to come, and then we do the research. And then we measure it in ways. It's a 2-way kind of a trip, and each is $100. So for the 2 ways is 200. As you can see, airfare, a round trip from Montreal Airport to Entebbe, that is for 1 person, it's $1,800, 1,800. So basically, that is it. So these are what I call the budget lines. See, here it is personnel. Here it is travel and per diem. Here it is printing equipment, supplies, materials. And then every narrative, okay, every category has to have a subtotal. Then there should be a grand total now at the end of all of the things. So we requested for $15,580. And guess what? It was slashed by half. So we could only get 7,920. So again, you need to know how much you can ask for. But now for this one, they had not indicated how much we could ask for. That's why we could even go up to 50,000. So then they said, no, we can only give you anywhere between, So we had to slash this, we had to modify the budget. So okay, bring my phone. All right, so that is it, guys. Unless you have a question, I think we've come to the end of our grant writing workshop. The people who are here, I think we are still going to be together with them, doing some practical. Yes? Okay. Can you come closer so that the people who are online can also? Oh, you have a question? Okay. Could I get to know the difference between a project concept and a project proposal? How much content should each have in terms of document size? I'll answer that right away. In terms of size, it really depends. Sometimes, like I said in the beginning, the funder or the donating agency or individual will tell you, I want your problem statement to be 1 page. I want your goal and objectives not maybe to exceed this. I want your activities to be this long, and I want you to ask for this amount of money. So really, there is no specifics in regards to like the size or the length. So, and then the difference between a concept is actually, I would say a concept is a subset of a proposal. That is how I would define it, because a concept is just a brief of the problem, what you want to do, your like a brief justification for doing it, a few outcomes, and yeah, that's just a concept. And normally, it even doesn't have a budget. You can just mention the amount. I want 5,000 to do ABCD to solve this ABCD problem. And the concept is normally between 3 and 4 pages, and at most 5 pages. But a budget may be detailed because, like a full proposal may be detailed because it has many sections. There are even some sections which I didn't mention here, but they could go in your annexes. There is what we call a sustainability plan. There's also what we call an M&E plan, because how are you going to monitor, how are you going to track progress? Some donors will, some call for proposals will ask you for how you do that, right? So there's just so much for you to do. So, and then the sustainability plan is like, how do you want to live beyond this project cycle, beyond this donation that we're giving you today? So those are the things that make your proposal longer than a concept. So, and a proposal is for a project, but a concept can be just for an activity. For instance, we are doing a waste management project in a slum. One of our activities is sensitization. So we'll do a concept just for the sensitization. Maybe another activity is for training community, let me say ambassadors or something, whatever you want to call it. So it is within that project. So the concept, so you pull the concept from the bigger project proposal. Like it's like a snapshot of your idea. So if you met someone just now and you wanted them to know about your project and what you want to do, then a concept could actually do. So, and also a concept is sent to, it could be to many, it can also be broad, because it may not have a specific person who is receiving it, but for a project proposal, it has details. So there is a specific person you are addressing it to, but a concept is just telling you simply about what you want to do and how you want to do it, just in short. So it may not have a name attached to it. So for a proposal, these are like the 7 items which I listed, but they could even go to 10 or even 15, depending on who is asking for it. So I think I've answered your question, Hillary. Any other questions? Any other questions?
Some question.
Yes, you can come closer. Hmm? Sorry. Yes, you can ask your question.
Yes, once again, this is Derek. Now, when I'm writing for when I have a project and I want a grant, you see, normally when I want money for a business and I go to a bank, I ask for my track record. What have you done before? Is it the same with a grant? That is my first question.
Come again?
I'm talking about a good track record.
Yes.
When it's a business plan and I want money for a business, the banks will always ask for my track record, what I've done before.
Yes.
Yes.
It is also.
What about a grant? Does it apply or it depends on the funder?
Oh, are you done?
No.
Okay.
Let me go to the second question.
Yes.
Now, assuming I have a a 5-year project, and I've applied for a certain amount of money, like $40,000 US, but my project is meant to run for 5 years. How is the money given? Is it given at once, or it's given on a yearly basis or monthly basis?
Okay.
And then the third question, I hope you're keeping track of the questions.
DFC, just DFC. Yeah, I'm keeping the questions. So
Yeah, and then the third question, can I apply for multiple grants in the same project?
okay.
Like I have one project, but there are 2 organizations maybe who have advertised for the grant. Can I apply for both or even 3?
Okay.
Thank you.
Such a good question. So I'm going to start with your last one. Can you use one proposal to get money from multiple sources? I'll also give you a question back. Can you use one CV and application letter to to apply for different jobs? You can, right? Will you just send them the way they are, or you have to make edits?
I think that analogy is kind of different. Because with a job, I can use one CV to apply for it.
Okay, maybe let's just say a cover letter. Okay, now here's.
It can be the same, but it is only one organization that will call me. And if this organization will call me, I give that.
But are you going to take it, like, let's say you've applied to Stanbic Bank today. Are you going to use the same cover letter? Like you printed 10 of them. Can you just cross over and you take it to Centenary? Say, I'm also looking for a job.
I can tell you to fit Centenary. I can also tell you to fit. I can tell you they want to fit what? Stanbic Bank. See, I can apply at Centenary. I can apply at. I'm not talking about having exactly the same papers. I'm just applying for both.
Okay, there is no crime in applying for. You can apply for as many grants as you want. You can use the same, as long as it is your original idea. You've not stolen it from someone, right? It's absolutely fine. You can use it even 100 times. Just as your CV is your own. So you can use the same CV for as many times as you want. But what is important is, yes, like you mentioned, tailoring it to meet the needs of a specific funder. So I think that's what matters, really. Because in grant writing, you have to dance to the tune of the funder. If the funder says, I want 70% of your staff to be females, there is no way you're going to say, I want 70% of my staff to be males. That is not going to happen. If your funder says, I want women-led organizations, this is a male-led, it is out of this business. So again, you'll have to tailor your proposal or your idea to meet the donor requirements. But of course, if it's an issue that you really care about and it is just the one issue that you want to do, I guess that is fine. But there's also this risk. It will actually depend on the funder. And some funders will want you to disclose every information. If someone is already funding that project, and then they get to realize that someone is funding that project already, then they might, okay, if you wanted the money for upscaling, for expanding, then that's okay. But if you wanted the money for doing the exact same, which is already being done by another funder, then you're not first of all being fair to yourself. Yes, so there is no transparency there.
Where a certain source wants to give us a fixed amount of money.
Yes.
But my budget is about that amount.
Yes. Okay.
Maybe,
now I get you.
Maybe they're giving out $4,000.
Yes.
But my budget is about 10,000.
Yes.
So the question would be
the balance.
Would they apply for this? Then I look for another source to cover the 60%.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that is what a funder wants to hear. Because if your project can't kick off without 100% of the funding, then they're not going to give you the 4,000. And in that case, they only want to give you the 4,000 once they've known you can get the other 6,000 to make 10,000 to do your project. So that's why you have to indicate in your budget even how much you already have or how much you're going to seek from other external sources. So you need, but also that is very tricky because if you're saying you're just seeking, you haven't got it. So someone is going to be like, okay, they haven't really gotten that. If I give my share and they don't get from the other person, so that means I wasted my money, right? So that is the dilemma you're going to be faced with. So you want to make sure that you've either gotten already from one donor and you're only seeking a top-up, right? Otherwise, you're not going to get that addition. Normally, they don't want to be the first one to give you. They want to be the second one. They have to do a top-up, right? The first one has to take a risk. Mm.
So when I see the advert for the second grant, now I want to upscale.
For upscaling, it's very okay.
Then I have the full budget now.
That's very okay. And for upscaling, by the way, you are very likely going to get money for upscaling projects. Do you know why? Because your idea has already worked, and you have evidence, and you have reports, you have the impact. So someone is going to be very happy to be like, oh, this has worked, and this is the level of impact. So they know their money is not being risked. They know their money is going to do even more because you're proven you've already done something already. So that is the good news with upscaling. That's why if an organization gets a grant now, they are most likely going to get grants again. Yeah. So it is just like also for those who travel, if you get a visa from this country now, the next time you are applying, it's going to be easier for you. Always the first time is because that's where people build trust and that's where risks come in. This is somebody I have not known, they've just presented an idea. Well, they've presented it's going to work. What if it doesn't work? So they also ask themselves all of these questions. What if it doesn't work? But if it works, they are going to give you even grants very easily, unconditional. For as long as you met the requirements, the reporting requirements, mostly it's just going to be reporting. Then your other question was bank track record. Yes. So yeah, again that connects to my other point of where I said if you've gotten it today, it's easier for you to get it again tomorrow. So that's your portfolio, right? How many donors have you worked with in the past? It counts. So that's why if you go to organization websites, they will list the donors that they've gotten. If someone visits, if a potential donor visits and says, oh, they've worked with the EU, oh, they've worked with GIZ, oh, they've also gotten support from USAID, from CDC, from maybe World Bank, that is good for your CV. So it's like you're seeking for a job, but you don't want to mention your previous work history. Yeah. So it's like you're just a fresher. So and mostly people don't trust freshers, right? So you want to make sure you mention that I've worked with this, I have a clean record, even I have respected the financial policies of these donors. Some are very strict. They're starting. Now for the starter, it is very tricky. It will depend on how you package your application really. Because it's like you're just an idea. But even if you're just writing for a grant for the first time, do not sound like you haven't done anything. That's why for me always, when I interact with people who own small organizations, don't be like, well, we registered, but now we are not doing anything because there's no money. A donor doesn't want to hear that there's no money. There are certain things that you could potentially do. Look what we are doing in the 𝗄𝗚𝗊𝗀𝗀, guys. Yeah. So those are things you could even do without money. Just holding the megaphone and having an army of youth doing something, doesn't cost you money. Or it could cost you 10,000 shillings, Yeah, but it can go a long way. A donor would want, if they see those, they'll be like, wow. So don't let your application be plain. That's why when people send me their CVs and they don't have any job history, even they don't want to put their internships there, even they don't want to put any volunteering experience there, there is at least something that you've done for the community or for, have those. And that is the starting point. But if yours is plain and your justification for not doing anything is there's not been money, then you're not going to have money, trust me. Because no one wants to be the first one to give you money. So when I applied for a small grant, like it was my first one, so we had been very active on social media even before having that money. We're just giving our time and sometimes giving useful advice to the youth. And some people write to us, you guys have jobs, because they think we are very professional, like we are very big. They say, man, we are also looking for jobs. Yeah. So it is very easy for someone to believe in you. So if someone comes to your Facebook, they need to see some work happening. So when we applied, we mentioned what we already have. We mentioned our story of starting with nothing and not getting any grants until now, but we are doing amazing things. And how if someone invested a bit of money, it could go a long way, So that is how we got $1,000 as our first grant. It was very easy, and our story was featured on the funders' website of how a rural youth group of youth are doing things from scratch. Basically, we said we are going to use our own computers to do ICT training, and we want to start a mobile lab where we just go to schools and work with ICT teachers and build the capacity, stuff like that. There are certain things that you don't really need money. Then we also did this Google mapping. I think I shared with Fred a bit about this. Using our smartphones, we are mapping places. This is IT at work, man. Like, we are putting landmarks, roads, hospitals, schools, administrative points on the map, And then our argument was, so this was our slogan. ICT originating from rural and going to urban. Think about that. Normally, the traditional trend is technology comes from the urban and flows to the rural. But now for us, we wanted to prove the urban because they always have this big head that they know everything. Right? We are starting from the village and we are coming to you. Right? And it worked, So, and another thing I want to tell you is you can always write grants and not get them. And that's okay. Just like you apply for a job and not get it. That's not really the end of your job search, right? Instead, you apply for even more. And in some instances, you can even write to the potential donor and ask, could I get some feedback on my application? Like, what really broke the deal, So that in your subsequent applications, you're sure of what to write and what not to, right? So others will be very open with you, and they will tell you, there was a problem with your budget, because they have a sheet where they actually give you scores. They can even share with you your scores. Your budget, we didn't quite understand it. You didn't follow the guidelines. Your project was off track. Stuff like that. That's why for me, I say, if you see a call for proposals, you need to spend as much time as possible just reading about that grant, how to apply, what to include and what not to include, and make sure that you're in a very good shape. Like everything that has been mentioned in that call for proposals, actually you have it. If you don't have it, if you don't have it 80%, then you've lost already. But if you have it 80%, then you have some chances, right? Because these are very competitive, and there are millions of organizations that are seeking for grants, and this is the easiest way. Non-profit organizations survive on grants, so you're not alone. Even in Uganda, there are more than 2,000 organizations. Those are like national and international. Now, talk about the CBOs, including ourselves, Kectil, also a CBO. There are tons. Every day they are actually being incorporated. So it's very competitive. But I can also tell you, especially for CBOs, smaller organizations, most of them die at the phase of getting a certificate, and that's it. Most of them don't really hit the ground. And their justification is we haven't gotten money. We don't have money. Another very important thing I want to tell you when doing grants is don't do once-off activities. Like I've told a group of youth who did a budget of 21 million Ugandan shillings, and they just want to do a one-day event, and you are a starting organization. 21 million shillings could take you several months, right? And also, someone wouldn't really want to give you 5 million now, and then tomorrow, what you've done is actually nowhere, right? It has all vanished. And out of the 21 million, 8 million was going into system, a public address system. So I said, guys, get serious. So are you doing a dance competition or what? Again, it depends on the project. But once-off events are very, very harmful. Like very harmful. Think about how much 21 million could do, man. You know? And for every project that you write, make sure there is a transition. After this, what next? You know? It's very important. So now you are doing waste management. For us, we are cleaning there. Even we make it very clear. We are not going to be cleaning for the entire year for people. We are not cleaners in the first place. That's the goal. But our message is for community to take up what we are doing, right? So that's why we are doing it for these few months, and with the hope that community is going to take it up and they're going to manage their own waste. That is sustainability. But if you write a proposal for cleaning Acholi quarters, man, nobody's going to give you funding unless they are blind. What if the money is not there? You know, so it has to be sustainable. So you come up with, so ours is very sustainable actually. Behavioral change. We want people not to pour rubbish when it's raining, thinking that it's going to be driven downstream. We want people not to throw plastic out of the windows of cars because they think no one is seeing them. You see? So that's something very sustainable. So I guess that's it. Unless there's did I answer all of your questions? Uh-huh.
I was asking about the funding structure.
Yes.
It's,
Oh, how money is remitted. So how money is remitted depends on who remits the money. Some people will give you all of the money at once, but these days it is they give you maybe quarterly, maybe monthly. It depends. So if your proposal is chosen, by the way, if I choose your proposal now, I may still ask you to redo everything. I've just liked your idea. Then I'll tell you, please do this, do this, do this. It also happens. Then you have to do it. But I've already given you the money, right? So then there is also an agreement that we sign, right? There is a donor agreement that you have to sign. And that agreement details everything, how the money is going to be given to you, either quarterly, either monthly, or activity-based. When there is an activity, then you request for the money. Because even for them, they don't want you to keep all of the money with you. So most of them now, you'll have to draft a concept for every activity that you do, then you send the concept, then the money is remitted. Others will, okay, release the money for 1 quarter. But for the money to leave the account, a concept has to be approved first. That, okay, this is a good activity, we approve. So really, it depends on who is giving you the money, right? And all of those always is detailed in the donor agreement. Yes. Yeah. Whether it is going to be through mobile money, whether it is through Western Union, whether it is through the bank, all of those will be detailed. And how you're going to report, also detailed. Any other questions about grants? I think this is a very, it should be an interactive workshop because we want to learn. And if you're here and you don't want to write a grant, then you're in the wrong place, right? Because we want to be writing grants. There are how many people in the house? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We have 13. So we expect 13 grant proposals. Yeah? Yes?
I'm going to ask about information.
Mm.
I believe many of us agree about these things.
Yes.
So where you access information, some like they're advertising from project somewhere.
Yes.
All that information, where they get that information in advance, like where I get information from
Okay.
stock markets.
Okay.
Maybe New York Stock Exchange.
Yeah. So now I put a few links just on the chat. There is funds for NGOs. There is Advance Africa. There could even be more. There are opportunitydesk.org. But you can even just list, like do your Google search and say top funders in the world. Then their names are going to come. Then you go to their websites, individual websites. That is how you get. But for me, I also like to steal information. Like what I do is I look for organizations that are doing a similar activity as myself, right? Because they normally have websites. If you go to their website, then you see the projects that they are doing, then the person who gave them the money, right? So that's the person I'm also going to approach because they're always open, right? Now, like last time, sorry, there are these guys. I hope none of your representatives is here, but they came to our cleanup, right? And I was just checking through what they do. Then if you come down here, you see these guys. The guys are many. These are people who support them, right? So now for me, if I want to write a grant, so I just decided to go to this one, Girls Not Brides. I decided just to go there. Okay, I think they have not embedded the link. So I'll just come to Girls Not Brides. So let's see, Girls Not Brides. So what do they do? What are they doing with these guys? So I go and I read. So now, Girls Not Brides, I think they have grants. Okay, let me just say grants. Okay, grants. You see, funding opportunities. Now, you see? So I think Girls Not Brides, what it does, it brings in opportunities, calls for opportunities for their network organizations. So that means these guys have subscribed to Girls Not Brides. So this one, anyone can apply. Anyone can apply. Let's see. You see? Lots of money. Even the pollination project is here. So that is also another good strategy, For me, I don't have any other better strategies. Like where I normally go is I go to job boards, opportunity boards, and then individual organizations like my competitors. Unfortunately, these are my competitors now when it comes to financing, but they are my partners because we are both working on a cause like development cause, so that's good. But in terms of money, we are competing, right? In terms of resources. Yes. Any other questions? Yes. Maybe you can come closer so that. Okay, let me just bring this closer so that the people who are online can also. Yeah.
Good morning. Now, if you're applying for a grant, then they ask you to talk about yourself, not about your project, but they want you to talk about yourself. For a job, it's very easy when they call you to talk about yourself. You can easily just say, but then here they want you to write like 5,000 words talking about yourself. So what do you include in that?
Okay, that's for a grant.
Yeah.
Okay, even if I've not been asked like to talk about myself, normally they ask you to talk about the project team instead. Then that is where we brag, and then we bring our CVs, and then we show how experienced we are in that field, and how we have done similar projects in the past, and how we even achieved our targets 6 months into the project instead of 12 months into the project. But if they ask you to talk about yourself, I think that would normally happen like in the there is always a pitching kind of a session. So when they choose your project, they may call you to come and pitch your project. You come and convince a panel how good your project is and the impact it might bring and why you should be funded and not the other people, right? So if they ask you in that regard to talk about yourself, then you need to talk about yourself in relation to the project. If it's about nature conservation, waste management, then perhaps I have written 10 articles published on reputable journals about waste management. I've done consulting for 5 years to SMEs, to organizations about waste. I've also supported KCCA in one of their projects that dealt with waste management in slums, you know. So you need to talk about yourself in regard to the project, just how rich you are in that field, right? So I guess that's how you would. Maybe you are if it's a gender project, maybe you're a champion, maybe there was some project. Okay, for me, in 2016, I did some project with UN Women, and it was called Championship. And then I was given a certificate of a global champion for change by community. So for me, if you ask me to talk about myself, and I've written a gender-related project. First of all, I'm going to mention I'm a global champion for change, you know, with 5 years of experience delivering gender-related projects in slums, because that's where I want to do my project, you know, stuff like that. But of course, they have to be true. Like they don't have to be lies about you, you know. Maybe also if you're part of any associations, maybe I'm also a member of Girls Not Bright, which is a network of gender women activists. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think I don't know if I've answered it fully, but just play with it along that line. Introduce yourself in regards to how capable you are in that field and how in a better position you are to deliver that project. The schools you've gone to, if you've studied engineering and you're doing a gender project, I wouldn't mention my engineering course, like I wouldn't. But if I have a bachelor's degree in gender studies, I'm going to be very proud. I'm a certified gender expert with a bachelor's degree in gender studies from Makerere University and a certificate in gender-based violence management, conflict management, you know, stuff like that. Just as in your CV, some people put their grades. For me, I normally put my grades if I know I have good grades. my CGPA. But if I know I don't have the good grades, I'm not going to put, I'll just mention I have a bachelor's degree in this, I have a certificate in this. I'm not going to talk about my grades. Let them call me to an interview and see for themselves. Yes. Because, you know, when they call you to an interview, sometimes it's not about the grades. Sometimes it's about how you express yourself and how someone sees you in a better position to deliver that. Sometimes it's never about the grades. So if there are things that you can avoid, so that's because they have not met you and they're only seeing you, the CV is representing you. If I think you don't have to see this, I'll hide it. Yes? Yeah.
Let me ask something. You know, very nice. I wrote about myself in relation to what I'm going to do there. If I'm applying for an IT job, I don't need to write about it in my
Unless there was an IT bit, maybe you edited content, our audio messages, you know, very, 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 very interesting. Mm.
Another question. Sorry for asking.
No worries.
Now, let's talk about the donors.
Yes.
What is their interest? What do they want back from you?
So, you see, donors have a whole bunch of requirements from you. Now, let me tell you this, getting the money is one thing, but maintaining the donor is even the hardest thing. And some people get their contracts cancelled even just a year into the project implementation because they have not met donor requirements. Donor requirements range from financial reporting to representing them. If they are a donor to LGBTQI communities, they want you to be representing them, doing the LGBT work. Now you've gotten our money and you're not doing the work. So that's a deal breaker, right? Like if they're environmentalists, they don't want you to, like, that's why if they're environmentalists, even some will ask you for an environmental policy. In your office, do you guys still use a lot of plastic? Do you buy plastic bottled water? Or does everyone carry their plastic water bottle and just refill? Do you have separate bins for plastic and organic waste? Do you recycle paper? Do you limit the use of paper? Do you just transfer files by email if you have to? You know, so those are like so. But the financial requirement is always you need to report. You need to report on every coin that you spend, and all of the reporting requirements are always also put in the donor agreement. Are you going to be reporting on a monthly? Are you going to be reporting on activity-based reporting, or are you going to, but even just for you to be in a better shape with the donor, you don't have to wait. You can even meet and exceed their requirements, right? If they ask you to report on an annual basis, but then you have 12 months, you could even just be reporting on a monthly basis. It doesn't hurt, even if they don't take their time to read it, but just send it for fun. Just say, I know you don't need it, but here's just a copy of this month's report for your reference. Then they're going to think, wow, this one is serious, right? So even us, when we got our very first grant of $1,000, they just wanted us to do one report, and then that's it. Then for us, we went an extra mile, and we disintegrated our report. We have financial report separate. We have activity reports without the finances. We have reports on everything from every department. So what the donor expects, it depends on who the donor is, first of all. But donors normally want you to embrace their ideologies, right? To embrace their values. So unfortunately, that's the strings. So they come with strings. Yes. Yes. Yes.
I believe if you're doing a project, you're supposed to first be a research, total research on something. Like I'll give it an example in the community of 𝗴𝗿𝗊𝗀. And then if a project, I know if you're realizing a project might be realized by one person or a group of or a team of people. So now, in terms of after project is realized and research is done, what I want to ask is, if we are now going to make into or look more financial assistance, if we are making a budget or if we are allocating a budget, do we need everyone on board or the members? Do we need stakeholders feedback also, or do they also participate in the budget allocation? That's what I wanted to ask you.
Okay, so he's asking about budgeting. So by the time you decide to write for a grant, you have a project team. So the project team is the one that is in charge. Again, it depends on your organization and how powers are shared. To be honest, there is no single right procedure, because you may have an organization which is controlled by a family, just one person. So they have to approve everything. It's just them and not anyone else. So they do it. But you may also have an organization which is well established. It has a board. The board is the topmost powerful body that sees the work, that supervises the director of the program, you know. Then the director is in charge of the staff, make sure that, you know, the project programs are running, you know. So it depends on the organization. Some organizations will ask project teams to participate in budgeting. Then the budget has to first of all be approved by the board, you know. So that is it. So there is really no, I would say there is no like generally agreed procedure. It is on an organizational basis, it is on a donor basis, you know. So it depends on who the donor is or who leads the organization, just the leadership structure of the organization and how power is shared in the organization. But it would be very important for you to be as inclusive as possible in terms of your budgeting, in terms of mobilizing resources as well, not just budgeting, but mobilizing resources. Because now, if you have project teams work tirelessly to write a project proposal, and now you don't want them to participate in budgeting, then that's also wrong. So the more inclusive, the better, right? But the approval process depends on who the organization really is. Like, seriously. Yes, Derek, you had a question? Yes.
So the donor is like me who's requesting for funding. I'm like an ambassador.
Yes.
Maybe a donor wants to do something. So I can't tell him we have a certain objective. He just give me the money, I do it in Ghana.
Yes.
So in a way I'm fulfilling that objective on their behalf.
Yes. So to answer that, you see, donors even have people they are reporting to. Do you know that? So donors, the ones who give you money, may not be actually the owners of the money. They may just be grant-making organizations. It's very common in the US, where we have people whose jobs are only to mobilize resources and disburse resources and account for them to their donors. For them, what they report is, we have given $10,000 this year, we've given 100,000, we've given $1 billion. That is their job, right? Now, they report to the people who give them the money, who pick the money from their pockets, right? So, really, it depends on who is giving you the money. If it is an organization, a big organization, let's say UNFPA is giving you money, but I know UNFPA also got the money from somewhere else, right? So UNFPA will have their values that you'll have to respect, that you have to advance in your work, right? So that, and most likely UNFPA's values also align with the values of the other person who gave them money. So this is about alignment. It's starts from the one who picks the money from their pocket, gives someone until the grassroots. So the same set of values are passed from a range of steps, from top to bottom. Unfortunately, so you can't do anything contrary to it. If anyone is funding 𝗏 party, they will expect 𝗏 to do only political things, right? Go and oppose this, hold political rallies, things that are political, So, yes.
No, in that line, also, because management, the management, management, and then now, we don't do most management that time again. We try, you guys try to implement some other project. Can the money be reversed to the other project or the money? When it has come for West Side, it is meant for West Management.
I think you know the answer. So if it's for West, it is for West. If you divert it, you've now done contrary to what you are supposed to do. So unless it's really coming from the donor.
That's why I'm saying like that in the community. That's why I asked you that. You know that you really know that you're having a project. You're having a project for West Management. And now out of the blue, you get an emergency. That really requires attention for the past.
So I think
you also, you as an ED of the organization, you really see it. So,
but now listen, but that is not the ED's money, you know that. That is not the ED's money. Unless you want to say you're the one who is funding the organization. If you know you depend on someone, then you can't take such decisions, right? You'll have to notify your donor. Either they can create additional funding for that project, or they will tell you whether or not to, first of all, cancel this project as contract and revise it to cover, like the emergency. Otherwise, if you just decide because you're the ED, then you risk losing funding, Yeah.
as well as because I've been analyzing it.
Yeah.
The community gets a lot of support from the organization.
Yes.
So now there's this organization called 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what the
Projects.
talk about sensitization, sensitizing. There's now when I asked you the other question about the stakeholders. And the stakeholders was also consider. So it is in this one here. Yeah, but I say it's all so this thing that you're doing because of money. So now I'm being real. You're doing because of money.
They want to wash your hands.
Washing hands. Then now the so now I believe they are spoken because they have not known
The real problem.
They have not known the cause of that one, the cause of the project. Because now that project will be basically like so now for them they are saying to me, now this power is giving us washing hands. We are washing hands over 1,000.
And they are selling them to buy food. Now let me tell you this. So in project planning and management, like
so would it be the Samaritan us into a research?
That's a possibility.
Community, and now they are trying to imagine what the community does a bit. Because now I believe in a project. I believe in a project before implementing a project. Just husband, you decide like how you've done the 𝗄𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀, knowing that the 𝗄𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀 has been on the project for always management. So now, could it be the need for people in the community? Because now it happened, this year, there you be from UN based and then now we're trying to have interaction as leaders, trying to ask them. They didn't answer, they all kept silent, but now we're trying to say now. What I'm doing, no project, what I'm doing, but the project is not effective. Okay, so now could it be they didn't do a research on the community person, or could it be the fact that it came to KCC are trying to reason for people? So what do you say about that?
Okay. Okay.
Let me comment just a minute. And thank you all. I come to purposely listen and learn. But as he brought out a good way, which I'm just going to make working at. It's not possible for any organization to come unless there is some groundwork they have done. It's not possible. 𝗲𝗲𝗱𝗀, I'll give you a scenario. 𝗲𝗲𝗱𝗀 purposely they came with the idea of WASH. That was their basic idea. The challenge is probably the way they sensitized the people was where the problem is. Because they came and did the research, they realized there is need for WASH in actual waters. But now, how did they feel in the people that they are delivering these services to? How did they sensitize? What are, did they, it's like when they were talking to these people, they didn't give them much information. Because if you ask any person from there, you'll realize that they are naive. They don't have much information about the actual work 𝗲𝗲𝗱𝗀 is doing. That is one challenge that organizations have faced. They come, they know where the problem is, but they don't fully feel in the people on what they are supposed to do. I think that's where the issue is. Because it is practically impossible for me to write a project on WASH, then I come and divert it. It's not possible. It's like Kectil writing on waste management, and then instead they find Kectil distributing food. I think there the donor will say these people are really not making sense. So I think that is the comment I can make on that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Mr. George, do you think that's why I said that the stakeholders involvement? Do you think if one of the donors who is donating on the project of WASH hears about the stakeholders' feedback, these people they are doing, do you think it can affect? There's a way it creates an effect.
So, yeah, this is really interesting. Okay, one thing that I want to make clear is that if I'm a donor, I have my set of interests. I'm going to stick to those interests, and no one is going to compromise those. If I'm a WASH organization, I'm going to remain WASH. Now, I think the problem is a project has to be a product of a concrete research. That's why in the beginning, when we talked about the problem statement, that's where you come to the community and you get the information, because there are so many problems in the community. Hunger is one, gender-based violence is another, the social problems, But now, which of those problems is of interest to you, and how severe are they? And they have to be backed with evidence. If really they did research and they established that these people need WASH, which I also think they do, because we are doing this waste and we can all see, I think what is lacking is the information bit. You need to make clear to your stakeholders, even the beneficiaries actually stakeholders. Those are the primary actors. They need to understand this project and what they should expect of the project, but also what is expected of them. So once everyone is on the same page, then you're not going to expect more than what you are told you expect. You understand? If you are told plainly, we are going to do WASH, we are not going to do food, you're not going to ask for food, right? I think there is that information gap which they need to work on. Otherwise, people are not going to support their project, and people are instead going to say, like so many projects better with this, right? They have these problems. I think from time to time, first of all, even before it is rolled out, there is always a project launch event where you invite all of the stakeholders from the primary beneficiaries up to community leadership, up to partners, up to everything about the project, anything that you think could influence the project. So there again, you re-emphasize what the project is about, what it intends to achieve, in how long, and the roles that each one of those people you've invited play in the project. But I think once everyone knows this is my lane, this is what I expect, this is what is expected of me, I guess there is not going to be any such issue of, people saying, we are tired of WASH. Because first of all, they will not welcome the project. If you are in a project dissemination event, a project launch event, like I'll tell you, at VSO, what we do always is we launch projects and we invite all of those stakeholders. And it's a big event, 2-day event. We talk about the issue, we re-emphasize, we bring our research and now our plan, what we want to do, with whom we're going to do it, for how long we're going to do it, and the impact we want to realize after some time. So we're not going to have any problem if we do that, And also, funders today actually expect that you start projects that have community ownership. Community has to own it. You understand? And that actually determines the success of the project. If community only feels they are a beneficiary and they don't have a big say, even they were not part of the research that you did, even you didn't call them for any project meetings, project-related meetings, but you only expect them to receive those hand-washing things, then it comes rather as a shock to them, right? It's very sharp. From nowhere, someone is bringing, and you've not even explained what that is. That's why some people might even sell those, some people may not use those, I don't know, yeah, but that is exactly the issue. Yes?
Just to comment, you brought out the last element, community ownership. I think the challenge that we have had with organizations and the community directives, interests are different. What do I mean? An organization comes specific, and for them, their interest is based on the project they have written down. But what the members of the community want may also be different. That is why we have had this scenario of, yes, we have brought a project on WASH, right? But then when you bring this project deep down to the people on the ground, they will take part. But time will come when their interest may not be on this. And you brought a very good point. You say we are looking at the sustainability aspect of it. My question is, if I wake up in the morning and give you food, is that sustainable? It's not. I think the only way would be, in order for these people to benefit from this, that same organization can write a project proposal based on, let's say, urban farming. You see, something that they will benefit from that. Because there is no organization that will put, there is no funder that will put money on you when they see your project is not going to be sustainable. There is no way I'm going to write a project proposal saying I'm going to distribute food and they'll give me the money. No. But then if I put something, for instance, let's say I'll go and teach the people about urban farming, something like that, something they know will be sustainable. I think that is what would make sense. Because if we are to say we are going to serve the interest of the community, we have seen a lot of organizations failing because they just want to do that. So there is a lot of paradox on that. But I think let's just look at focusing on what our interest is and let the people also know, as you say it will clearly know what our goals is and what purpose we are supposed to do. I think that is what I can say.
Yeah.
So let me add something to that.
Yeah.
I think here it's about balancing between what people need and what people want. So as an organization, you should make an effort to promote to people what they actually need. Because if you're to go with wants, you may end up feeding families.
True. So yeah, you go with the lady first.
Okay, so just to add on that, like we have seen in the villages, when you take boreholes to the villages, government things. When you take a borehole there and it gets spoiled, what do they always say? Let the government come and
Fix.
Because as say, there was no community engagement, community involvement. And we have a project in 𝗙𝗏𝗀𝗀. And the first thing we did, because it's about feeding teenage parents, the first thing we did, because our interest is to give them skills. But most people just assume they want to do tailoring, they want to do hairdressing. Most of them really don't want to do that. So the first thing we did, we went and asked each individual which kind of skill they would like to gain. So if they say this, these are skills we will take to them and they will own it. They will take part in it. But if you take tailoring and I don't want to do tailoring, I will not take part in that. Even if I come and attend the training. Yeah.
Exactly. So that is part of the research. So in the problem statement, that is where you state all of these facts. You've done concrete research. You've also experienced some of the things, and you're sure that is the problem that matters to you, and it's a severe problem, and it's really worth solving. And also, you need to, like you say, community has to be a big part of it. Like they should always be at the center of your project.